Tony Kinnett.
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 Host of the Tony Kinnett Cast.
Let's get down to business.
You're listening to the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WYPC.
WCYTV.
Here on the Daily 60.
Well, despite the best efforts of good old Senator Adam Schiff, and oh, how hard he tried to keep Kash Patel out of the FBI building and its great legacy of Hoover. Well, it seems that has completely fallen apart. Kash Patel has been confirmed 51-49. Senator McConnell did vote in favor of Kash Patel. We'll get into that, though, in just a minute or two, because we have to talk about Senator Schiff's last great protest against Kash Patel, the most passionate, amazing, heart-wrenchingly goofy stuff outside the Hoover building. Here you go.
This is someone who lacks the character to do this job, someone who lacks the integrity to do this job. We know that. Our Republican colleagues know that. The only qualification Kash Patel has to be FBI director is that when everyone else in the first Trump administration said, no, I won't do that, that crosses moral, ethical, and legal lines, Kash Patel said, sign me up.
Now, I do love that he, by the way, goes on to talk about how grave evil will be done by Kash Patel in the FBI building. No one seemed to have a big issue with him when he was working and was given multiple awards in the Obama administration. And again, just because, he didn't follow Adam Schiff's command of turn around and look at the Capitol Police officers in the Senate confirmation hearings. Again, Lisa Murkowski, Susan Collins said no about Kash Patel. Now, they both suggested it was because they didn't think that Patel was going to be apolitical. And I would very much like to know where those two senators have been for the last decade and a half. Every single position in government is political. That's why we call the study of elections and the government politics. Amazing. I know. Shocking. So that is, the senator from Maine and Alaska, and that goes just about how you think it would. Senator McConnell did vote in favor of Kash Patel and then announced today that he's not running for re-election, which surprised me a little bit because I'm going to be honest with you. I thought he already announced he wasn't running for re-election. He has quite a contested history. There were some moments before the Trump era that were really great as far as McConnell is concerned in making sure that a lot of Barack Obama's second term goals never were met. Of course, McConnell has one of my favorite sound bites in history ever, which is when he warned at the time Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid that if Reid went ahead with doing the stupid tearing down of institutions and traditions, then he would regret it, and a lot sooner than he would think. So one more time, this was back when he was Cocaine Mitch and not, establishment squish Mitch.
Say to my friends on the other side of the aisle, you'll regret this, and you may regret it a lot sooner than you think.
And boy, did they, because now the Trump administration is in, and they are moving faster than anything I have ever seen. A team full of mavericks in every single agency is moving to not just the tune of executive orders, but in reducing the regulatory and the rule oppression of American free actions, all the way from the economy over to things like the Department of Education, and also releasing things like the contracts of federal workers, which has not stopped, again, the bleeding, the crying, and the mournful tears of individuals who do not think that they should be held to any work standards, but that you should. And this led to a particular scene today in the press briefing with Carolyn Leavitt, as well as two others, including Miller, having a conversation about whether or not individuals were qualified who were being dismissed from the Trump administration. And one individual asked, I think the representative from the Secretary of the Treasury, well, hey, people are telling a lot of the media outlets like CNN and the Washington Post that they're qualified and they've only gotten great performance reviews. Why were they dismissed for poor performance? To which the administration quipped, I've never known anyone who was fired for poor performance who then turned around and admitted, yeah, I performed poorly. So Carolyn Leavitt and her press team are really shaking things up in White House press briefings. But we're going to have to put that off to the side. We're going to have to wait to talk about press briefing stuff because today on the stage at CPAC, we were treated to a surprise appearance from Argentine President Javier Milei, who is known for taking a chainsaw to all of these Argentine government agencies and all of the spending that had crippled the Argentine economy, had driven it through its 412th round of hyperinflation. And so Javier Milei came in and he cut spending everywhere, cut all of these federal departments. And he was known for basically picking up this chainsaw and slashing any kind of government spending that he could. And now with the Department of Government Efficiency, Elon Musk, appointed by Donald Trump to basically run this audit, Elon Musk has been going at the bureaucracy in the United States and the spending upon spending upon spending, full of abuse, fraud, and waste, clearly documented. And as funny as it is to watch those on the left now admit that, yes, there are some instances of waste, fraud, and abuse, and grumble mumble, Javier Milei strutted out onto the stage of CPAC tonight and presented Elon Musk with a solid gold chainsaw.
Thank you. This is the chainsaw for bureaucracy. Chainsaw!
Oh, Elon Musk is just such a nerd. I love it. It's hilarious. So there you go. You have Elon Musk holding the chainsaw for bureaucracy. Now, I'm sure that there will be a whole series of bloodbath comments by the end of the evening from angry pearl-clutching columnists who suggest that clearly Elon Musk is intending to kill people in a Halloween-style horror movie nightmare. He's, chainsaw massacre. He's going to start going through the agencies and lopping heads off. No, clearly, just before we even get out there, obviously the chainsaw is Javier Milei's thing. It's a ceremonial thing. Come on. So that brings us to the immigration protests, because there are other individuals in the federal government at the moment who are actually doing their jobs. One of those jobs is upholding federal immigration law. Tom Homan and Immigration Customs Enforcement have now weeded out a lot of the moles that have been leaking large-scale raids. Raids for whom, you might ask? Well, these would be individuals who are in the country illegally, who have violated immigration law, and are also violent criminals. They have either been charged with very disturbing and violent crimes, or they have been convicted of very disturbing and violent crimes. And so ICE is going through known cases to round those individuals up and deport them from the country. And, that one might say that's kind of an important thing, but that hasn't stopped some of the strangest protests I have ever seen. So again, Trump siding in large fashion with Israel against the radical Muslim terrorists of Hamas, who have decided that instead of releasing hostages they promised were alive, they're releasing the butchered corpses of women and children. The response by the left has, I want to make sure I get this right, a pro-Palestine and pro-illegal immigration protest in front of Trump Tower in Chicago. Here's what that looks like today. So you have Palestinian flags, you have Hamas flags, open Hamas flags, you have ceasefire flags, and Mexican flags. Because clearly just, one cause equal to the other right there. Absolutely, interesting, special. Bless your heart, I believe, comes to mind. What a convenient place for ICE to round up individuals who are likely violating the law. That all said, really great. Whenever you have any kind of a movement on the left, any kind of movement at all, and it's a socially based movement, the left cannot help but glue one social movement to the other. They can't help it. So anything that is pro-Hamas, you end up getting the LGBTQ crowd involved, all the queers for Palestine. And you have to get the Marxists involved, and you have to get the weird black supremacist crowd involved. You have to get all of these different groups together Now, do they have anything to do with each other? Like, do illegal immigrants in the United States targeted by ICE and the pro-Hamas protesters, what do they have in common? Well, apparently, really violent crimes. Those targeted by ICE right now are those who have committed or are charged with excessively violent crimes, not jaywalking. And, those who are pro-Hamas are also, rather, quite a fan of, extreme violence. So those things all said, we'll move on to talk about the main event for this evening, but we'll cast the radio crowd over to commercial first. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal. All right, live stream crew, those of you over on the internet side of things. The hockey game to end all hockey games is tonight. The United States versus Canada, now for the championship title of the Four Nation Face-Off. I looked at all of the great notes and news stories that my team put together today. And there were some really, really great pieces out there, some solid stuff. And I threw all of it away because instead I have decided to get the American flag that I kept from when I was a teacher. Actually, when I left teaching at Knightstown, I took down the flag from my classroom and I just kept it with me. I didn't ask anyone if I could do that. I loved that flag. I always kind of have. And so that particular flag will be with me tonight as I watch the United States face off against Canada again in this championship match. And what I hope will be a very, well, I don't want to spoil anything. We'll get to that later on in the show, because if I'm going to cut out showtime for it, I might as well use that particular showtime. There is one final element of news that I cannot help, no matter how hard I may try, pass up today. And this is the conversation from Donald Trump, from Vladimir Zelensky, from the Russian delegation in Saudi Arabia, and the greater world about what is and isn't seen as some kind of a deep, traitorous act of super duper evil. So, to be clear, I stated on the show yesterday that Donald Trump has a really good record on foreign policy. And Donald Trump's really good record on foreign policy is good enough that I can point to it and say scoreboard. And so, right now, in the middle of these negotiations at hopefully, the end of the Russo-Ukrainian war, that I'm going to wait and see the end effect, which at the time appears to be Trump trying to get Europe to pony up and do the ending agreements on behalf of Ukraine and station troops there after the war is over. In the process of doing so, President Trump has said some things that are objectively untrue. In the process of doing so, Trump has said some things that raised a lot of eyebrows and earned him a lot of ire. Some of it deserved, a lot of it not deserved. And immediately, the pearls have come out to be clutched on every single side. Every single side. Everybody has an immediate hot take. First of all, they're shocked Trump would say so. This is just base betrayal of ally. Okay. All right. The other side has come out and suggested that, well, actually, Ukraine did start the war, and it is all Ukraine's fault, and Putin isn't a dictator, but Zelensky is, and the other nonsense. You don't have to jump in on every single particular fight, on every single foreign policy schism, and immediately suggest that Donald Trump is 100% right or 100% wrong. There's no in between. He's either super genius saving the country, or he's the most evil fascist Hitler ever to walk the face of the... You don't have to do that. As you recall, as I recall, as we all should recall, when it comes to the President of the United States, he negotiates in a very loud, aggressive, and flamboyant manner. And he says some things that are true. He says some things that aren't true. He puts a lot of chaff into the air to obscure all of the armchair pundits from weighing in and tipping the scales on a negotiation. Will that work in this particular instance? I really hope so. But a lot of individuals, including some that I respect, both in the administration, outside of the administration, on all factions of the Republican Party, the libertarian groups, there's a lot of stupid going around. And so the reason I'm not digging 2 shovels deep into all of it would be simply because I think that we might be a little bit more beneficial here to wait just a little bit longer. That said, we're going to head over live to Rob Bluey at CPAC. This is the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal.
This is the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIBC.
Welcome back to the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal, nationally syndicated first on 93 WIBC. The Conservative Political Action Conference is in full swing, and so we're going to head over to Rob Bluey over at the Daily Signal. Thanks for joining us for a quick second amid all of the, what do you want to call it, a kerfluffle? Quite a humdinger going on over there.
It sure was. I arrived bright and early today. Tony, I've lost count on how many CPACs I have attended. Of course, this one's notable because it's Donald Trump's return. After 4 years of being out of the White House, he, of course, made a name for himself largely because of CPAC and the crowds that he was able to gather before becoming president and then obviously during his first term. And so there are great anticipation for his speech on Saturday. But, they had quite a few headliners on the main stage today.
So I know that I remember from CPAC 2020, I remember Mike Pence getting the crowd worked up then as Trump's vice president. Now we had J.D. Vance there today, just smacking CNN. Incredible stage presence. Obviously, the crowd was going rather wild. The general vibe that you're seeing there right now, I've noticed a lot of the punditry class talking about whether momentum is picking up or whether it's ebbing or whether we're seeing perhaps a momentary pause, or what are you seeing as far as the momentum of the right there on the ground at CPAC?
There's a lot of excitement and enthusiasm. There's no doubt about it. I mean, you see that not only in the clothing and the apparel that people wear, a lot of people dressing in in clothing that has Trump's name on it or the MAGA name on it. I think that it's interesting because there's clearly a contrast today. I mean, there are a couple of new polls out today from the Washington Post and CNN suggesting that Trump is unpopular. Now, of course, if you look historically at these numbers, in many cases, it's the highest number that Trump has ever received in, like, say, a CNN poll for approval rating. And of course, the CBS poll came out about 10 days ago that gave him 53%. And so I think that what I see is a stark contrast. There are those who still deeply resent and want to resist Donald Trump, largely in the legacy media organizations. And then those people who show up at events like CPAC who are just so excited about what he is doing. Finally, they say, after years of these promises that politicians have made to cut spending, you actually have somebody like Elon Musk going into these agencies and identifying the waste, fraud, and abuse. And so they're seeing results. They're seeing President Trump deliver on the promises he made on the campaign trail. And Tony, I'll point out one more thing from that CNN poll. Even though that his approval was under 50% in that poll, 75% of the respondents in that poll said that Trump was doing what he promised. And so I think that, there's those politicians who make a bunch of promises, Joe Biden being one of them, and then they do the exact opposite. You know what you're going to get with Donald Trump.
So I think that this is the next stage that we're looking at here as far as the media's attempts to kind of slow down the Trump administration and actually get the camera back on them. And this Ipsos poll that CNN and that Washington Post and that Reuters are throwing out in front of everyone's face, we talked about it on the show a little bit last night. This idea that, oh, well, actually, Americans are really concerned about Donald Trump's role as president because getting between Trump and Musk didn't work. Now they're going to suggest Trump is unpopular. It's like they're trying to get Trump's, vanity off of focus or whatever, or his ego or whatever. I'm not necessarily sure that's going to work, but it's not just how voters feel that drives an administration's momentum. It's all of the ancillary organizations, right? Those who are working with the Trump White House day after day and getting things done. Those are a lot of the people at CPAC, right? Those are the people in DC that are working. How has the vibe shift there since Trump started a month ago?
Sure. And you're absolutely right. So I'd say that, the CPAC is made up of, three different constituencies. There's the celebrity speakers, whether you're an elected member of Congress or some other newsmaker. There are the hardcore grassroots attendees who are out there working in the trenches. And then there's the group that you talked about. There are the people who are either leading policy organizations or leading grassroots groups. And they're the ones that we were speaking to at the Daily Signal throughout the day. There is a lot of excitement significant, not just about what's happening in Washington, but the downstream effects in states. And so those policy groups are seeing a lot of positive activity taking place in state capitals, I think because people feel a certain energy and enthusiasm that doesn't necessarily mean that everything has to happen in the nation's capital. And so, for instance, I talked to a group, the Freedom Foundation, which is working actively to make sure that individual Americans who are belonging to public sector or government unions know that they can opt out and they don't have to belong. And they said that they have seen record numbers of individuals taking this action, I think, just because they're more politically aware of what their option is. Talk to another group, Michael Chamberlain at Protect the Public's Trust. They're talking about the oversight and the level of accountability that is taking place. And the fact that you now have a situation where there are government agencies that were just unresponsive or doing things on the political will of Joe Biden's friends and allies who are now saying that they're going to cut and slash government spending because it's not a good use of taxpayer money. And so, yeah, I think that the groups that are certainly represented at CPAC today are, and over the next couple of days, are, certainly cautiously optimistic that things can continue on this way for the next couple of years.
I think that one of the things that we've talked about at least at the Daily Signal in our communications from the day to day is about impact and what actually moves the needle, what actually does something that is of substance that we can then point to later and say, this is where a difference was made. I think of Chloe Cole. I think of individuals who garnered a large following because, in her case, because of the detransition. I know that we were able to chat with her today. We've talked a little bit more with some of those movers and shakers, not just behind the representative or the senator's desks, but whom are responsible for getting in front of voters, getting in front of Americans and saying, this is what needs to be done. And I have the experience to push it forward. They seem pretty energized by the first month of the Trump administration so far.
Well, and they should be. And in the case of Chloe Cole, I mean, here's somebody who never expected to be thrust into the public spotlight, but who now, through her work at Do No Harm, is really out there on the forefront and making sure that Americans understand the consequences of gender transitions. And in her case, for those who don't know about her, she went down this path for a number of years before, she saw the light and realized that this was not what she wanted to do to her body. And so, there are groups like that who are obviously represented at CPAC. And I think that they point to things like President Trump's executive order protecting women's sports. And they're really, heartened by the fact that the president is deciding so quickly to move on some of these issues and not letting them linger for so long. But Tony, I will say this. Congress needs to back up the president on this. I know that they've been focused on confirming his nominees, and they're doing a phenomenal job getting 19 confirmations done ahead of pace from the previous administrations. They need to codify a lot of these executive orders that President Trump has signed, because if they don't, I worry that a future president could just come in with the stroke of a pen and wipe them out. And so that's where the hard work really has to happen. And as you and I both know, it's no easy task in Congress with a slim margin both in the House and the Senate.
I'm thinking of the getting ready for the budget reconciliation process and then addressing the Trump tax cuts. And I do have a bit of a concern that we're going to futz around so long with the particulars and the tweaks and the little adjustments on these two large bills that by the time we are finally done with them, we're going to be sitting down for turkey at the Thanksgiving table talking about getting ready for midterms next year. And we're not going to have perhaps as much time to start codifying these executive orders.
You might remember, Tony, 8 years ago, it was exactly what you just described that played out in Congress. They fuddled around for a number of months, and then they ultimately were not able to repeal Obamacare and pass a Trump plan for health care. John McCain famously gave the thumbs down on the Senate floor. And then it was only after that they decided to turn to tax cuts, and it took them until the end of the year. It was, I believe, the final weeks of 2017 before they got anything done. And the problem with that is that because they waited so long on tax cuts, they weren't able to provide that juice to the economy that we really needed. And so Republicans, therefore, suffered some consequences of that. I'm hoping that they can get this all done. I know Trump has indicated he wants one big, beautiful bill. The Senate appears that they're going to move ahead with two bills. Really, Speaker Johnson and Majority Leader Thune need to get together and figure out how they're going to reconcile this reconciliation package.
Absolutely. So that kind of brings me to the last thing here. When we're looking at the House, we're looking at the Senate working together and the lack of cooperation in Congress. To me, and again, not to perhaps try to frame a really pretty target for the left to finally hit. This is a little bit of a soft target that I'm not seeing the left throw punches at. Right now, a lot of anger, a lot of screaming over the White House fake Time magazine cover where Trump joked about being a king in response to Kathy Hochul's "we have no kings" comment or whatever. Just, the classic kind of Trumpian, bowling around. Do you think that, I know given the memo from yesterday, it's not likely. Is there any anticipation at CPAC or right now in DC that the Democrats are starting to figure out how to punch back, or is it still a dumpster fire?
I think that there is growing concern, particularly because the Democrats are just blatantly lying. They have said that President Trump is going to cut services like Social Security and go after Medicare. Now, Trump has said for years, dating back to his first campaign, that he would not touch those programs. The problem is, and I think back to the whole pushing Granny off a cliff during the Paul Ryan era,
right.
that the Democrats will say this, the media will run with it, and it'll start to stick. And then this will hamper efforts, or it will scare away some Republicans from taking the tough votes that they are going to need to take. What we're doing is not sustainable. We're going to have a $2 trillion, trillion with a T, budget deficit. And to say that we can't make any cuts is just living in a fantasy land. I don't know where the Democrats, are. We already have a $36 trillion debt. We can't add to it every year. And so there needs to be politicians who stand up and say, no, we're going to stop spending. This is not a revenue issue. It's a spending issue. And so, Tony, I'm hopeful that those Democratic attacks don't stick. But I will say this. The Democrats, as you and I both know, they were going to reorganize. They were going to, find their footing. And whether it happens now or whether it happens later, Republicans need to be prepared for it.
So last question here, because I can't help asking. The RNC and the DNC are totally different places than they were a couple of years ago, right? We're now out of the we're now out of the Ronda Romney McDaniel era, and we're now in the area of Chairman Whatley and Lara Trump. And then the DNC is Ken from Minnesota and David Hogg. New strategies. Do we see the inklings, the hints, the signals perhaps that an RNC strategy might be in the works already?
I think so. They need to prepare for the midterm elections, obviously. If President Trump loses the majorities in the House and Senate, that will make his ability to implement his agenda all the harder. And we know that historically, incumbent presidents don't always fare well in those midterm elections.
He was out to win in 2024 in a way that he really wasn't as much so, at least in dedication to every state, every vote, as he was maybe in 2020 and even in 2016. Do you think that he might bring some of that energy in the RNC, bring some of the Scott Pressler strategy from Pennsylvania, let's say, into House and Senate elections?
They have to. They can't take their foot off the gas, to your point. Precisely for that reason. And they need to make sure that they are defending not only the incumbents, but hopefully they're expanding the map. Remember, President Trump overperformed in so many parts of the country, literally every part of the country,
exactly.
that I'm hopeful that the RNC will devote the resources to some of those districts where it thinks it might be able to make some gains and pickups.
I sure hope so. Either way, Rob Bluey, thank you very much for joining us from CPAC in Washington, D.C. It's great to get a little bit of the perspective down there. And got to tell you, though, really not missing the swampy aspect of it, though.
Thanks, Tony. Well, we miss you. We wish we can see you in person, but soon enough we will. And thank you for all you do for the Daily Signal. We appreciate it.
Oh, genuine pleasure. Folks, we'll be back in just a second. Don't go anywhere. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal.
I'm Bradley Devlin, politics editor of the Daily Signal. I want to invite you to tune into my new show, The Signal Sit Down. For far too long, your political leaders have not represented you in Washington, D.C. Instead, they've chosen to represent themselves, their friends, and powerful interests. On The Signal Sit Down, we'll expose how the sausage really gets made in Washington, D.C. with guests who have experience on the inside. Past guests include Senator Ron Johnson, Congressman Andy Harris, Senator Rick Scott, and Congressman Riley Moore. So check out the Daily Signal's newest show, The Signal Sit Down, on YouTube, or listen to the audio version on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. I'll see you there.
Subscribe to get the news the legacy media won't tell you and only the Daily Signal can bring to you.
Awful tweets, the ones that no one ever deletes. Awful tweets on the Tony Kinnett Show.
On 93 WIPC.
All right, welcome back to the Tony Kinnett Cast. It's time for some awful tweets, so we bring out at Indy Spanglish over on X, Jerry Lopez. Jerry, my man, are you ready for a...
Man, I am so anxious. I got to jump right. Hey, listen, Kash Patel. If you thought Doze was wild, wait until Cash Me Outside gets into the FBI.
I
This
am
is going to be amazing.
So excited for what I hope is to be the release of the Epstein list, all of those Epstein files. There's going to be a lot of weeping, a lot of gnashing of teeth, and I'm sure some terrible tweets. So let's get right to it. People have sent in some real stinkers. We're going to start off with this lady called the Freaky Frog, and I'm not gonna read the actual username here. I'm gonna try to bleep out some words as well. The intelligence is not with this one. She is quote tweeting that RFK is considering limiting being able to use food stamps, being able to use EBT on junk food. Like, you can't go and spend all of your food stamps, all of the EBT on just junk food only. So that's one of the things they're considering. She says, "I'm not mad at this," like quoting people. She said, "You all bleeping suck, man, trying to police food. People deserve sweet dang treats. Why can't they get a bleeping ice cream because they are poor?" What do you think, Jer?
I mean, it's not my job to pay for your bleeping ice cream, lady. Like, when America is dealing with inflation and trying to cut down on prices, the first thing to go are snack cakes. Right? Why should I let this person who I'm paying for go buy all the little Debbies they want to? Come on. And I'm going to pay for your health insurance? Give me a break. Give me a break.
I don't think you're wrong. All right, so now we've got a more inspiring message. Never forget, when the USA was attacked... no comma, just that's the sentence. When the USA was attacked, Europe stood up and fought for our friends. When Europe was threatened, America sided with the aggressor. What?
I didn't know you could find somebody dumber than the first tweet, but you pulled it off somehow. I mean,
yeah, we did.
In World War II, we're literally us helping them out. I don't see even what she's talking about.
I'm not sure when Europe was threatened, America sided with the aggressor. We've sided against the aggressor by, again, bankrolling, along with Europe, Ukraine's defense. We sided against the aggressor in the case of the Israeli Hamas. I mean, what is like the Falklands, and even that was against the aggression of Argentina against Margaret Thatcher. I don't know where they're going here. We're gonna move on because this is too stupid. This one you sent me, and I'm very upset at you for sending it to me. So there is some soy boy looking goober in the bottom corner. I don't know what social media app is this.
I have no clue. This just came across as a story on my timeline on Twitter, and I screenshotted it, and I said, this is crazy.
Okay, so cockroach milk is about 4 times healthier than cow's milk, buffalo milk, and human breast milk, according to experts. What expert? Cockroaches?
Hey, so listen, I actually looked this up, and there's a movement for this. They actually talk about milking cockroaches.
How are you supposed to milk a cockroach?
My only question at this point is, I have nipples. Can you milk me, fucker?
I know, right? A very meet the parents moment there for sure. Dude, God gave us all of these wonderful creatures that we can get milk from. Ducks. Or not ducks. The first one is completely off there. Excuse me.
Tony,
cows. I know, right? Duck milk. It's going to be huge. You got cows. You got goats. Really, that should probably be just about it on your milk drinking journey.
We didn't even give you almonds. You had to go to cockroaches?
Yeah, almonds out there, but you cockroaches. Fantastic. I'm going to get so many messages because I said duck milk right off the bat. Oh, great. Well, this next one is reply to you. Although you did not send this over, so someone else thought it was awful. You pointed out that Maxine Waters was yelling, harassing, and taunting this guard at the Department of Education, trying to force him to give her his ID again. He'd already given it to her once. And she says, this is Kate Votes Blue. What right does anyone have to keep anyone else out of a government building? Oh, the self-awareness.
Ding, ding, ding. You win today's award. Like, first of all, let's backtrack a little bit. Maxine Waters is asking somebody for their ID. Like, first of all, that's crazy.
Oh, yeah. Because California, you're not allowed to ask for ID in elections.
Yeah, but he's a white guy, right? According to them, maybe he can afford one, right? So I don't know. But this is J6. What right does anybody have? Come on, man.
Okay.
Listen, the Democrats are red pilling themselves in this news cycle.
All right. Well, we'll talk about maybe some other pills that should be taken here. Kanye West, who went on his insane rants and in just patently nuts tweets, dude having a breakdown that's lasted for a couple years at this point, after tweeting out super pro-Hitler stuff. I mean, I'm not saying like dog whistles. Dude's like, hey, guys, I'm a Nazi. He finally has come back to tweet, after further reflection, I've come to the realization that I am not a Nazi.
I mean, hey, listen, I'm not even going to disrespect that tweet. That tweet it speaks for itself.
That was tweeted by...
After further realization, I realize I'm not a Nazi.
That was tweeted by a lawyer.
Music, Tony. What timeline is this?
Well, unfortunately, it's the really cringy one, because after, again, Trump's administration ruled that the weird toll tax system on congestion in New York City was not allowed, Kathy Hochul has announced that they're suing. They're gonna try to appeal this. The Gen Z theater child from the actual State of New York account tweeted, "Beep beep babes, we're taking you to court," and then like the hand heart emoji. I want to crawl under a filing cabinet and die.
Let me get this straight, Tony. We had our little tea parties in the harbor over taxes, and here is the New York official account, the official government account, tweeting more new taxes, more new, and we're going to take you to court to get them. Come on, man.
Also, and just throwing this one out there. When I hear Elon Musk and Doge talking about the individuals being fired in the federal government, I hope it's people like these that are tweeting out this garbage nonsense. Speaking of people being fired, though, this is a Reddit post. Said, never knew how much everyday people hated government employees until now. So this person lives under a rock. I really didn't know how many people hated government employees till now. I see people celebrating layoffs and people being fired abruptly. It's been jarring, to say the least. Even saw someone say they hope the government shuts down and there's no back pay. It's kind of sickening, to be honest.
Yeah, let's just keep it 100 here, Tony. About 90% to 95% of your listeners, to include myself, would take an 8-month severance package. Like, let's just be honest. 8 months? Man, I would take 60 days off and work 2 jobs. Right? They are being given the best exit package anybody in this world could ever think of. Come on, man. They're not that upset.
I will show you someone who's really that upset. And this is our last one here. So Trump from the White House account. So not even Trump, but the White House account, in response to the whole congestion pricing dead thing, he responded to Kathy Hochul's comments in which she said, you can't just cancel taxes. You're not a king. They responded with a fake Time magazine cover in which Donald Trump, an oil painting with a crown, Trump, long live the king. And so people are losing their marbles over this. This guy named Timothy Bellman says, this is objectively the most un-American White House in our history.
I mean, we've had some pretty un-American White Houses if you want to go back to people that were like pro-segregation and stuff like that. But I will tell you this much. I'm not upset about the dictator. And here in about 30 minutes, we're going to get us another state. And the 51st governor is going to be Mr. Trudeau. Let's go Team USA, baby.
Hopefully not the governor of that state for long. Jerry Lopez, Indy Spanglish, wishing you a very fine USA victory, we hope. We'll see you guys real soon back here in just a second for some of the pre-game festivities for the USA-Canada hockey game. This is the Tony Kinnett cast here on The Daily Signal.
Pro-life, pro-women, conservative, and feminist. That's right, we're Problematic Women, the show that is made by and for conservative women across America. The radical left doesn't know what to do with strong, independent women who believe in traditional values and love America. So you might say we're problematic to the left's narrative of what a woman should be. Here at Problematic Women, we talk about the issues in the news that you care about, from the politics on Capitol Hill that affect you at home to marriage, health, wellness, and the media. So, problematic women, you are invited to grab a cup of tea, pull up a chair, and join us every weekday for some classy, engaging, and sometimes fun conversation. Join Problematic Women on the Daily Signal's YouTube and Rumble every Wednesday, or catch the show wherever you get your podcasts on Thursday morning. And be sure to follow Problematic Women on Instagram.
Subscribe to get the news the legacy media won't tell you and only the Daily Signal can bring to you.
The Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIPC.
Oh, it is so time. It is so time for one of the biggest games of the decade. In fact, of 2 decades. And allow me to explain why. Now, we've talked about the USA-Canada game. We've talked about the 3 fights in the first 9 minutes, the Canadians booing the national anthem, the Tkachuk brothers just going ham on the Canadian team. We've talked about that, all right? We've talked about the tension right now between Canadian liberals and the United States. None of that is really the foundation for tonight's game. Is it a part of it? Is it the seasoning that's going to give this game a little extra kick? Absolutely. Because on the other side of this is, the 51st state. So, Allison, I'm going to give everyone just a little bit of background here. I want you thinking of what we're going to rename Canada tonight if the United States pulls off this win. So, that all said, in the 4 Nations Face-Off Championship game tonight, there are a few background details. The United States has not won a best-on-best tournament since it defeated Canada in the 1996 World Cup of Hockey. That's the only, by the way, the only best-on-best tournament that the United States has won. So we're really digging into some long-seated opportunity here for the United States. Canada, on the other hand, has won 5 of the previous 6 best-on-best international tournaments. That includes the 2002 Salt Lake Olympics, the 2004 World Cup of Hockey, the 2010 Vancouver Olympics, the 2014 Sochi Olympics, and the 2016 World Cup of Hockey. It has won 9 of 13 overall, involving NHL players going all the way back to the 1976 Canada Cup. So this is a grudge match of grudge matches because, for example, U.S. defenseman Brock Faber put it, I think for us, USA and Canada have always hated each other on the ice. That's how I look at it. That's how I think all the guys look at it. It's nothing more than just the hatred that the United States and Canadian hockey teams have for each other on the ice. When you're born in Canada as a hockey player, all you know is that you just don't like the U.S., whatever you do. And so that is the context building all the way up to this. Is that Canada has its hockey, the United States has its hockey. The United States is hungry for its first best-on-best championship win. It's second of all time, but it's first since 1996. And then flipping around on the backside of that, Canada's looking to hold the title and make up for its humiliating loss by 2 goals against the United States just a couple of days ago. There is one kind of pre-show clip that I was excited to show you guys because it is absolutely stellar. Those who are listening on the radio, I think there's enough narration to fit in here, but it's just incredible.
This is a moment of great opportunity. Two proud nations, 2 hockey powers, 1 game.
Wow. I'm very proud of being an American and definitely have a lot of respect for the people that have worn the jersey before us.
It never gets old putting on the maple leaf and playing with that national pride.
Playing in the gold medal game, scoring an overtime goal, that's what you dream of.
It really is going to be an amazing game. Now, are we going to see another case of 3 fights in the first 9 seconds? Probably not. Are you going to see just an all-out duke it out on the ice situation? I hope so. I watch hockey for the fights. When I do get a chance to sit down and enjoy whenever a little hockey game breaks out when I'm watching the fights. Mostly, though, what I want to see right now is the cultural momentum of the United States propelled forward to extreme heights. And then the best part of any game, the best part of any win, is in fact dunking on the losing team. So Allison, for the 51st state, which is the comments point out, you really shouldn't have a state playing an entire country in a tournament like this. Do you have any suggestions for what we rename Canada after they lose to the United States tonight?
So at first I was going to go with like a maple leaf, like pun of some sort. I couldn't come up with one. So then I looked at like all the famous people from Canada and I found the perfect thing.
Let's hear it.
It's called Rock Nation. So Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, he's technically American, but his dad's Canadian. So what does the world love more than Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson? When Canada meets America, Rock Nation.
But like it's a state though, so it'd be like Rock State?
No, it can still be nation. They need to have some kind of ego boost a little bit. We aren't taking away their entire country.
Well, making it a non-voting territory is very important. I am personally a fan of Norther Dakota. So you've got South Dakota, you've got North Dakota, you've got Norther Dakota. And then when we take Greenland, that can be Northeast Dakota. Good.
Just keep the Dakotas going.
As opposed to Minnesota, Maxisota. A little size differential there because, it's so much bigger than Minnesota. All right. That one's not too terrible. Then there's New Mexico. This would be Snow Mexico.
Okay, see what you did there?
You lost the Gulf of Mexico. You got to throw Mexico somewhere. Everyone has all of the letters on the signs. You got to put them somewhere. Snow Mexico.
Recycling. Okay.
See, that's some responsible stuff there. Well, whatever we name Canada, I genuinely hope that you guys do enjoy the game tonight. That's where I'm going right after the show ends in 20 seconds. Thank you very much for tuning in to the Tony Kinnett Cast. No bonus tonus tonight. I'm going to go grab the American flag, the popcorn. It's time to watch a game. Go USA, and most importantly, screw the hosers. You guys have a good day. We'll see you tomorrow.